Welcome into a brand new edition of the Sports Hub Patriots podcast, coming to you on Monday, recording just after 1 o'clock after the Patriots opened their season with a win against the Cincinnati Bengals, 16-10 on Sunday. It's Alex, Barth, and Matt Dolloff with you from 98.5thesportshub.com. If you're looking for the Felger and Maz reaction video, that's already up on Dolloff's Twitter. Well done, sir, once again.
Thank you.
No
Nice
rust from the
preview of 2 to 6
offseason,
there.
but we'll try to get a little more into the weeds maybe than that one. But I guess let's just start here. The New England Patriots are 1-0. The 2024 New England Patriots are 1-0. They won Jerod Mayo's first start. They beat a Bengals team that a lot of people talked about having Super Bowl aspirations. Now, not the full team. We'll get into that, but a win's a win. How are you feeling about the Patriots after this game? Is it any different big picture than you felt maybe at this time yesterday?
I'm glad we're coming out of any point in the season being able to say the Patriots are over 500. Now, this might be the only point in the season. We'll see. But at least we can talk about that. Patriots being undefeated and over 500 for at least a week. I'm not sure I feel differently, but I feel more confident in what I was feeling throughout the summer. And by the end of the summer, maybe started to doubt what I was feeling and thinking and seeing on the field. And that's with the coaching staff. I was saying, just based on what I believe about Jerod Mayo, what I think, what I feel, my gut, that he's going to be a good coach, and this is going to be a good coaching staff. They're going to be a well-coached team. But we had to see it on the field. And, Jerod Mayo gets to talking throughout the summer. The messaging gets all convoluted with us anyway. And when I started to think, like, if this convoluted messaging is in any way reflected on the field, they could be in trouble from a coaching standpoint. So I'm not surprised the defense is still good. I was still high on the defense, even though they lost a couple of big pieces. Not surprised that they were able to run the ball. I've been saying all offseason, even with this offensive line, I think they're still going to be able to run the ball. Not surprised that there wasn't much of a passing game. I knew that their pass protection was going to be an issue, and they're still sort of lacking at wide receiver and tight end, even if they're a little bit better than last year, still lacking at the skill positions, lacking in the passing game. So none of that really surprised me. I wouldn't say the coaching surprised me, but it really sort of validated anyone that had any sort of confidence in Jerod Mayo being a good head coach and this team being well coached. And look, we'll see if they could sustain it over 17 games. But I think it's safe to say, I think we've already seen enough that it's not going to be a total dumpster fire mess like we saw with some of the other dregs of the league on Sunday, like the New York Giants or the Carolina Panthers. Like, they've been talked about to be in that tier of team just because they're coming off of that bad of a season. But I think Jerod Mayo is a good, smart coach. I think they're a well-coached, tough, smart, prepared football team. I think we're going to see that most weeks. I think it's going to keep them in a lot of games. Not sure it's going to lead to a lot of wins. But I think we can come out of that game feeling good about the coaching staff. And I think that there's a lot of people coming out of that game feeling a lot better than they did going into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a big takeaway for me, too, just the operation of it all. You have on the first play, Del Pettis leaves early on the kickoff. Oh, boy, here we go again. And then after that, not to pick on your guy, Del Pettis, but after that.
I thought that was Bledsoe. But, yeah, that Pettis has number 24 now, right?
Yeah, I had to double check, too. But, after that, there's a couple penalties here or there, but you never really looked at it as what are they doing? What is this operation? They got the play calls in. Everybody was lined up where they needed to be. You didn't have too many men on the field. You didn't have not enough men on the field. And look, that's not to say oh, wow, they called plays and they lined up correctly. They're going to win the Super Bowl. No, the bar's on the floor there, and they cleared that very first baby step, but they cleared it, especially after, even in camp, there were some questions about what the operation would look like. I think it is encouraging to see it look like that. Now, they had essentially 2 months to prepare for that game with the preseason. Now they're on a regular week. So we'll see what happens next week against Seattle. And like you said, they got to keep it up. But first game for this coaching staff, I think the operation looked clean. For the most part, I liked the play calling on both sides. I mean, there's little things you can nitpick here and there, but I think you walk away more happy than not with the jobs that Alex Van Pelt and DeMarcus Covington did. And I would say the coaching staff passed their first test. I don't know how you can't say that. Let's get to some of the specifics, and we'll start on offense. Matt, you've heard me give this rant enough, and anybody who listens to me has heard me give this rant enough, that The Patriots the last 2 years kind of ran Rhamondre Stevenson into the ground, and they weren't great about watching his usage. He only played 12 games last year, had a bit of an extended offseason to get fresh, redistributed his weight, kind of changed his body type a little bit in the offseason, and it showed up. It showed up on Sunday. That's as explosive as I've seen him look. PFF has 118 of his 120 total yards after contact. I mean, just a dominant performance. Now, he did touch the ball 28 times, which is a lot. And I don't know that he can give you that every game. And maybe when Antonio Gibson's healthy, it balances out a little bit better. Gibson was limited yesterday, or questionable yesterday with a hip injury. But it was nice, kind of a nice reminder. Like, we didn't see that Rhamondre Stevenson for most of last year. And I don't think physically he was up to being that version of himself for most of last year because of the workload he put on in 2022 and early in 2023. That's a reminder of what this guy can do when he's healthy. And he was awesome. He was awesome in this game.
Oh, yeah. And just quickly on the offensive line, I knew coming into the season that the quarterbacks would be able to handle the struggles they would have in protection, better than we saw last year. I think it's the same with Rhamondre Stevenson. I think he can handle maybe, a missed assignment here or there, or a guy getting pushed back into him. He can handle that as well as any running back in the league, in my opinion. The way he can stay on his feet. He's so light on his feet for a guy his size, and he just sees the field so well. And he was saying during training camp, he thinks he's a really good fit for this system with, it's really just find the hole, one cut and go. And I mean, we saw that on the touchdown run, Layden Robinson and Michael Wenu opened that big hole for him. He sees it, he attacks, he's in. You didn't see a lot of him just running straight into the line or running into a blocker or anything like that. And so he's just so hard to tackle, especially when he gets a head of steam going. And I think as long as he can see that first hole, if they can get that one opening for him, he can find it. And there were a lot of times where he broke tackles too. He broke tackles right at the point of attack. There were plays where I think it was Dax Hill on one of them where he just sort of slipped, or he just bounced right off him. You know what I mean? Like, he's just so big and strong and such good balance. And if he gets a head of steam going, he's even harder to bring down. And so that's where I think like a running back can make a difference. Like, if you have a running back that can make up for poor blocking, that can break tackles. I think he was first in the league yesterday in yards after contact and like 78th before contact. Someone posted that. Someone from Pro Football
118 to 2.
Yeah. And so like, he's so good after contact because you try to bring him down and you can't, and then he just gets that momentum going. And like, he's so hard to bring down in the open field. And I think we just saw the difference he can make even when the blocking isn't perfect. There was some good run blocking yesterday. I think they're a better run blocking team than a pass blocking team at this point. They probably will be throughout the season. But they got to keep Stevenson healthy and upright and all that, and maybe preserve him the best they can. But hopefully there are games where they can. I don't know how much they'll be able to do this without the passing attack, but if they can build a lead and then sort of preserve him for the second half and do those things that they were doing in the second half of the game, and not have him do that the entire game. But I think we just saw how much of a difference Stevenson can make when even when the blocking's not fully there.
All right, you mentioned the offensive line. Jerod Mayo talked this morning, very complimentary of that group, said the issues have been overblown. They were moving guys in the preseason and on and on. And I guess we'll start with the unit as a whole before we get into individual stuff. If you can't tell, I'm a little locked in on this. I just finished writing up kind of an assessment of the offensive line. You can check that out on 985thesportshub.com.
Read that.
I think where it starts is the left tackle position, right? And Chuks Okorafor started the game. Vidarian Lowe was limited throughout the week. I think ideally they didn't want to play him. But Lowe, 13 plays, 5 passes, 3 pressures. He was just getting his lunch handed to him by Trey Hendrickson. And look, Trey Hendrickson's a good player. But they needed to make the change. And this, again, credit to the coaching staff. They were decisive. Midway through the second drive, they said, we can't have this, made the switch. Vidarian Lowe comes in. He was better. He still wasn't great. He had a false start early on. By the way, the only accepted penalty against the Patriots offensive line in that game, which is a good sign. But
yeah,
he has a penalty, allowed 4 pressures on 16 opportunities against Hendrickson. So that's still a 25% pressure rate. That's not disastrous, but it is high. Like, anything above 30 is where you really start to worry. So 25 is like, you can live there, but ideally you don't want to. And Mayo said this morning they're going to continue to figure out that left tackle spot. But from a pass protection point of view, just we're talking, we'll get into the run game, but pure pass protection, which was the weaker element for the offensive line in camp. PFF had the number, it's right around 48% of your pressures come from left tackle between Lowe and Okorafor. You then had Layden Robinson at right guard allow 5 pressures. Michael Jordan allowed 2. Andrews and Onwenu clean sheet in the passing game. There is something you can build on there. What that tells me is you got to get left tackle. And I'm talking more long-term than just next week. If you can get left tackle figured out and you can help Robinson, now maybe there's some pieces in place. But it sounds like they're going to keep having Okorafor and Lowe compete for the left tackle spot. Mayo didn't sound sure who's going to be starting there next week. I get that. I don't think they should have that decision made right now. I think you got to see what it looks like in practice, especially if Lowe gets healthier. I'm leaning Vidarian Lowe right now, but this is kind of the product of what we saw in the offseason where they never really settled on a left tackle. And here we are week 1, and that spot's still wide open.
Well, yeah, if you maybe pick the left tackle, I'm still going with Vidarian Lowe. I think he technically played better than Chuks Okorafor yesterday. That's technically correct, is the best kind of correct.
By default, if you want to put it that way.
By default, Vidarian Lowe is better.
That was a good Futurama reference. So I didn't know that's where you're going.
I dug a little deep there.
That is a deep Futurama. That's like season 2, I think, Futurama. That's a deep cut.
It's way down there. It became a meme, though. So, maybe people know it from the internet. A 60% pressure rate for any player in any matchup is poor. And so, they had to take Okorafor out. But it sucks for him that it was so early in the game. But thankfully, Vidarian Lowe was able to come in, even though he was on the injury report. He's been dealing with, I think, an oblique injury. They called it an abdomen. So whatever he's been dealing with, at least he was able to deal with it enough to play through it for one game. I'm still leaning Lowe going forward. But Mayo made it sound like they might go back to Okorafor for at least another game, or at least start another game and then see how it goes. Look, I feel a little bit of validation, Barth. Like, I've talked about this with you on multiple podcasts, on the radio on Labor Day.
Yeah.
It really boils down to just left tackle. Like, they're going to have the rest of the line under contract next year. I mean, I think David Andrews is under contract for next year.
Yeah, he signed an extension this offseason.
Yeah,
so unless he retires, but yeah.
Right. If he's still playing, he's in for a multi-year extension. They have Onwenu signed. They have Layden Robinson on his rookie deal. They have City So still on his rookie deal. We'll see about Michael Jordan, but I don't know how much longer Michael Jordan will be in there until City So is back. It's really just left tackle. And it's obviously their biggest need in the short term and the long term. We got plenty of time to talk about the long term. We got, there's probably going to be plenty of 2025 draft talk when it comes to that position. But in the here and now, I think you have to stick with Vidarian Lowe. He's obviously not a great option. He's not an ideal option. But I think he can get to the point where you could say he's inconsistent, because I don't think he got blown up on every play, where it felt like Okorafor was getting blown up on every single play. Almost, I think being 60% pressured was honestly being a little kind to him. But I think there are plays where if Vidarian Lowe could just get his hands up, like Elliot Wolf says, like he could stand guys up and keep them to the outside a little bit, just not consistent. And he's not the most physically gifted left tackle, but can he be serviceable can he get him through this season? I don't know. I'm not going to bank on that, but I think that's what they have to go with at this point. And the rest of the line, I think David Andrews had some trouble with setting protections and just identifying the right protections. There were a lot of unblocked rushes up the middle, so there were struggles with that. But physically, I liked everybody else, and except maybe Layden Robinson has a little bit of work to do with giving up a little bit of inside pressure. But he at least had his moments too, and so it's not like he was getting blown up every play like the left tackle was. But yeah, it's really just that's where the problems boil down to. And I think the problem at left tackle sort of seeped into the rest of the line. And then the offensive line concerns seeped into the rest of the team. People acted like just because they suck at left tackle, they're going to suck at every spot on the roster. I think that's clearly not the case based on this one game.
But it can happen. And I just think it's kind of wild, to your point about, most of being at left tackle. Pending Monday Night Football, obviously, Jacoby Brissett was pressured on 48.3% of his dropbacks. He faced the highest pressure rate of any quarterback in football. And we're sitting here saying, well, it certainly could have been worse, which is kind of wild. And again, half those pressures came from the left tackle spot. But it doesn't seep into the rest of the roster in terms of overall talent, but this was one other thing I wanted to get to on the offense, Matt, is so the Patriots first half, I thought they had a good mix. I liked their play calling. Nothing overly aggressive, but I thought there was a good balance. They were able to move the ball, stay ahead of schedule. I don't think they ever got overly predictable or anything like that. They come back out in the second half, and their first 3 drives, 3 and out, punt. That punt is the one where Joe Cardona forces the fumble. They recover the fumble. 3, it's not technically 3 and out because they kick a field goal, but they go 3 plays, kick the field goal. They get the ball back, 3 and out, punt. So you essentially had, including the field goal, you went 20 yards in 10 plays on your first 3 drives of the second half. And that came after the Bengals really started to turn the pressure up on Jacoby Brissett at the end of the first half. Now, after that, they snapped back, and they had that 12-play, 52-yard, 8-minute drive from the end of the third to the beginning of the fourth that was massive. I mean, that drive more or less iced the game. I know they had another big one later, but they get a field goal at the end. They make it a 2-score game. It just gave them so much comfort. But it did feel to an extent, Matt, like after when the pressure really started getting turned up there at the end of the first half, specifically from that left tackle spot, the play calling got more conservative and they maybe handcuffed themselves to an extent. I don't know if you felt the same way. That's how I felt. But that's, to me, where you see, no, the left tackle doesn't make the other players inherently worse. Like, guys don't become slower or less strong because of the left tackle, but right. It's such an important position. To me, it was an example of how the offense can be limited as you try to compensate for what you have or what you don't have at left tackle.
Yeah, no, I think early in the game, the left tackle issues were forcing Jacoby Brissett out of the pocket, and he picked up a few first downs just running to the sticks. And so I thought that was good. That was good by Jacoby Brissett, but It's obviously not ideally what you wanted to do. He's not the fastest quarterback in the world. He's not exactly Lamar Jackson out there, but it was good, smart by him to not force the ball and to not, make an errant throw while he's getting hit or anything like that. And so it was good on Brissett to avoid that. But yeah, I think as the game went on, I was going to use the same word, conservative. I thought there were too many plays where maybe this is more on Brissett than maybe Alex Van Pelt, but it felt like they didn't call enough, especially on third down. I would look at third down specifically, where they had a lot of third and short. I think they did a good job setting up third and manageable. We didn't have a lot of third and long situations in that game, which I thought was good. But when they got to those third and short situations, third and manageable, and call it like 3rd and 5 and beyond, situations where you got to throw the ball to pick up the first down, there were a lot of throws behind the line or behind the line to gain. There weren't a lot of play calls where I thought they could have thrown the ball at the sticks. Like I was waiting for them to throw a nice 7-8 yard out to pick up a 3rd and 5, something like that. We didn't see a lot of that. There was a lot of Jacoby Brissett settling for underneath stuff, and a lot of guys getting tackled behind the line to gain. We saw one with Demario Douglas. I think there was one with KJ Osborne, where they just came up 2 or 3 yards short. But I thought the decision to throw the ball underneath and not set him up so he could throw it beyond the sticks. I didn't get enough of a look at the all-22 yet to see how much of that was on the play calling, how much of that was just too much pressure, and how much of that was on Jacoby Brissett just playing too safe. I know there were definitely a few plays, especially early on, because I've gotten to look at the first half of the all-22 where Brissett had chances to hit guys over the middle of the field, but he just didn't have time to throw. And on a couple of those plays, he ran for it, so I guess it turned out okay. But you don't want your quarterback running out there, especially when you want to stay healthy. You want to give your number 3 overall pick back up time to marinate in the background while you get through this first month of the season or so. So yeah, I thought they played it safe as the game went on, probably to preserve the quarterback, honestly. But I thought it was probably a mix of either the play calling and the decision making by Jacoby Brissett to play it a little too safe, and they sort of let the Bengals back in the game a little bit, I thought, with the play calling in the middle of the game there.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only one when you talk about, sure, I thought it was mostly the play calling. They went run heavy too. There were just some runs on third downs that I thought you maybe could have thrown it. The only one that stands out to me as a Brissett miss was he had Pop Douglas to his left on a comeback. Maybe it was an in, and it was short of the sticks, and Pop ran the route short of the sticks, so that's on him. But I think if Brissett put the ball right. Do you know what play I'm talking about? I think if Brissett put the ball right on him, he could have ran for it, but Brissett threw it high, and Douglas had to go like up over his head to make the catch.
Yeah. No, that's actually the play I was just referring to. I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mario Douglas had to catch it over his head. It was
Yeah.
a nice catch, but if he caught it in stride, he might have had a head of steam and picked it up.
Or not even in stride. If he can just make the catch, turn and go, but he had to like jump, land, reset himself. But again, the Patriots did do a good job of staying ahead of the sticks, which I think was important. I just pulled it up here. Their average distance to go on third down was 6.1 yards, which was the fourth shortest average distance in the league, behind only the Lions, Colts, and actually the Bengals.
Yeah, I think if Brissett had more time to throw, you would have seen a lot more Hunter Henry throws on third down. There were a couple early on that Henry picked up the third, like an easy third down, just give him a fresh set of downs. I thought we would have seen more of that if Brissett had more time to throw.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought Brissett, for the most part, though, was solid in this game. Nothing spectacular, nothing flashy. That was just a solid, veteran quarterback kind of game. Took what the defense gave him. His legs are a factor, and he's never been like a true statue, but he's never a guy you think of as like a threat with his legs either. But like you said, he was scrambling. He ran 4 times, picked up first downs on 3 of them, was able to use his legs to extend and make throws on the run or just get out of the pocket to buy time to throw it away. I thought that was a solid showing for him. And there's a lot of people who were saying today, oh, well, Drake Maye could do what Jacoby Brissett did. They're not asking him to do that much. Why can't they do this with Drake Maye? I think that's kind of missing the point. For one, there were just some veteran decisions, either things Brissett did or didn't do, that come with playing in the league for a decade. And now Drake Maye gets a chance to see those on tape, and hopefully he picks those up. But I think it'll be a valuable chance for him to learn there. Also, they're not asking Brissett to do that much because I still think they're figuring out what their offense is. And they've talked about, and there's been reports kind of discussing that they don't want to put Drake Maye in with training wheels on. And what I mean by that is they want to put him in when the offense is full go, and he'll grow with it in practice. They don't want him growing with it in games. So yes, they didn't ask Jacoby Brissett to do much. That's kind of the point. So why throw Drake Maye out there? I think how they view it anyway. Why throw Drake Maye out there when you're not running your full offense? To me, it's not that they could have done that. Drake Maye could have done what Jacoby Brissett did. It's that they didn't need Drake Maye to win the game, and they could win it with Jacoby Brissett. I don't know how long that will be relevant. This is just a take for this game, and that's where the timeline comes in. But you didn't need Drake Maye to play. Allows you to take your time with him. I don't know, Matt, if you saw those other rookie quarterbacks. It really wasn't great, especially Bo Nix. Holy stink. I don't know how you throw for whatever it was, 120-something yards on 42 pass attempts. I thought Jacoby Brissett was solid, and I didn't miss Drake Maye too much yesterday. I still want to see him. But there weren't really any points during that game where I was like, man, I wish they had Drake Maye in the game right now.
No. Maybe like later in the game when the game started to get close and they needed to pick up a big play on third down. Like maybe you say like you want the better passer in there. Yeah, but I think anyone saying Drake Maye could have done that same thing is sort of missing the point. And I think it's sort of the same misconception that people have had for a while throughout camp, which is that, yes, Drake Maye is more physically talented than Jacoby Brissett. Drake Maye could physically escape the pocket like that and run for those first downs like Jacoby Brissett did. And even you can even point to a play where Drake Maye might have been better. Drake Maye probably could have made that throw to Hunter Henry that was almost intercepted, but it was underthrown in the end zone, and Hunter Henry had to break up the interception. Maybe Drake Maye makes a better throw. Physically, he's capable of doing that. To me, it's more about the mental aspects, which you touched on it with the experience in the league. Jacoby Brissett sees the field really well. His limitations are physical. It's not really mental. Like that near interception, I'm glad that Hunter Henry was able to break that up because that would have been un-Brissett-like. He doesn't make mistakes like that. And that's why I wondered if he was trying to throw the ball away. It feels like he was trying to make a play, rewatching it.
I think he just underthrew a fade. Yeah, that was his one miss I meant to mention.
Yeah, but like just I think the fact that he saw the field well enough to not force the ball in the passing game and take what they were giving him and then run for the first down when it was appropriate. I think that's going to be good experience for Drake Maye behind the scenes to go over the film and they could show him, look what Jacoby did here. He didn't try to force the ball into traffic. He did I think if Drake Maye played that game, he probably would have thrown a bad interception at some point. He probably would have taken it unnecessary sack. He might not have held onto the football. Like, I feel like that, and that's not to say that means Drake Maye is a bust or that even that he's not ready. It's just that's a rookie. That would be a rookie quarterback in his first career start who's not quite ready to be a full go and run with the offense as a full go. And I think Jacoby Brissett is way closer to ready to run the offense, as close to a full go as it was with the system as it is. But I think his ability to protect the ball was a huge factor in that game. The fact that they won the turnover battle, I think, is not a coincidence. And I'm not sure they would have won the turnover battle if Drake Maye played that game. So I still don't think Drake Maye is ready in terms of the mental processing. And I feel like he might have made mistakes that Jacoby Brissett wouldn't have made in that game. And that's why I think they're going with Brissett early on and letting Drake Maye, go through the process of preparing for a game and then reviewing the film afterward and just sort of my concern would be that what we don't want him to do and what we want to see him avoid. And right. I think this will be a good learning experience for him behind the scenes and hopefully for the next few weeks with Brissett in there.
Real quick on the receivers before we move over to the defense. You mentioned that nobody really stood out. Really balanced effort. KJ Osborne led the team with 6 targets. You had 6 guys with multiple catches. I think that's going to kind of be what they need to be, at least until Kendrick Bourne comes back. It's going to be ride the hot hand, take what the defense gives you. I don't know if there's a guy you're like forcing the ball to in terms of volume. Ideally, it would be Pop Douglas. They only played him 60% of the snaps yesterday, which was the second highest usage rate for wide receiver. That doesn't surprise me with how much they want to run the ball. They want to get their bigger, more physical blocking receivers on the field. Guys like KJ Osborne, who had a really good game blocking yesterday, by the way, or getting a guy like Jalen Polk on the field, even 2 tight ends with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper rather than Pop. So that's kind of the big thing to me with the wide receivers. I don't know that anybody was Osborne had a really good block on the Rhamondre Stevenson touchdown. Outside of that, like you like seeing Tyquan Thornton. I thought he had a promising game, but it wasn't like this great game. It was just, he got in, he found a couple holes in the zone, made catches, got out healthy. Great. We did see Jalen Polk very briefly, which was good, but I don't think there's one receiver you're going to look at. I think a lot of people came away from this game annoyed. Oh, well, who's the number one receiver? Who's the number one receiver? They didn't really throw to anybody. It didn't feel like any one guy had this overwhelming game. Again, at least until Kendrick Bourne comes back, I think that's just what it's going to look like.
Yeah, no, you're ahead of yourself if you're coming out of that game wondering who the number one receiver is. We're not there yet. This is a rebuild. These are baby steps. I think Jerod Mayo is trying to teach them how to not lose before they can even learn how to win and how to protect themselves and play it safe before they can actually make plays down the field. So I think we're sort of inching our way toward that. We're not really going to I don't even think that's going to be a question worth asking. Who's the number one receiver until Drake Maye goes in there? Like, then we'll have an idea of who his favorite targets are, who's getting open the most and all that. Yeah, but I think if they're going to throw the ball, they just got to go to the open guy. They got to, design plays for specific guys. And I think that's why we're going to see a lot of the tight ends. Austin Hooper, I thought, had a good game as far as pass catching. He had a couple of really nice catches in the passing game. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. And they also brought out Caden Wallace as an extra tackle, the jumbo tight end package.
A lot of that. Yeah.
For 18 snaps, and he played left side and right side. And so going back to the O-line like that should be valuable experience for Wallace too. So maybe he'll get in there at some point this season. But yeah, as far as the receivers, yeah, I think you just gotta throw to the open guy. I don't think you got to lock in on anyone in particular. And I think you're going to see a lot of formations with even just one receiver, but a lot of 2 receiver sets with the 2 tight ends. Like you're not going to see a lot of 3 receiver sets for right now. Like just the way the state of the offense. And from what I saw of the all 22 so far, I think Tyquan Thornton was getting open down the field, but they don't have the time to throw to him that deep down the field at this point. I think the opportunities are going to be limited in that part of the field right now. So I think anyone who's wondering about the receiver hierarchy and how they're going to get the passing game going, you got to be a little more patient. I think it's going to sort of look the way it is right now. We'll see if they can win even another game or 2 playing like this and scoring 16 points and just running the ball and going heavy. Like, I don't know how they can sustain that, but yeah, it's going to be a little while before we really figure out the wide receiver group and the passing game and all that.
All right, defense. Keon White, your guy. I'm just going to open it up to you. Go for it.
Yeah, look, people were talking about him like replacing Matthew Judon. Like he's obviously not the same kind of player. He's more of an interior guy. He's a 3-4 defensive end, so he's probably going to have a linebacker on the edge next to him, and so like he got a lot of inside pressure anyway. He had that late sack that I think he got some help from Josh Uche causing pressure off the edge that forced Joe Burrow up into the pocket, right into the arms of Keion White. But yeah, look, I think I thought he was primed to have a big year. For some reason, there were people that weren't really buying it. I don't know why. I think he stands out in terms of how he's just faster and stronger than a lot of the guys he's going up against. And so this is a guy that I think has a chance to be a true impact player for this defense. We saw it for at least a game yesterday. You know, I think the Bengals have a little bit of issues on their offensive line. I think Keion White made old friend Trent Brown look silly a couple times. And so
he did.
I'm not sure that he's going to do that every single week, but this is a guy that teams are going to have to account for. And he's not going to be the exact same type of player as Judon, but I think the impact is there. I think he's going to make close to that sort of impact. I think he has a chance to be, you know, a Pro Bowl caliber pass rusher this year, and it's going to be huge for a team that lost Christian Barmore and lost Matthew Judon. Like they're really going to need that up front. I don't know that they're going to get a consistent, strong effort or consistent execution out of guys like Uche, Dietrich Wise. I think we saw like they were sort of up and down, hit or miss yesterday. Keion White was a little more consistent for me, and so that's why I loved what I see. You know, I loved him already, so I loved what I saw out of him yesterday.
Yeah, I think if they can get that effort, that's massive, because I've talked a lot about how are they going to generate pressure on first and second downs, how are they going to generate pressure without blitzing, and he was able to do it. He was just in it for multiple alignments. I think you saw his pass rush toolbox, his repertoire has expanded, and it's still not maybe as expansive as it could be, but for a guy that's in his second year of the league, he's clearly building that, and that's encouraging to see. And one thing he did a little bit as a rookie was I remember him doing this in the opener against the Eagles a couple times. Like he'd get into the backfield relatively easily and he'd be one-on-one with the quarterback. And it would almost be like, what do I do now? Right. But he got right to the point, right to Joe Burrow, ended plays. You know, the hard part is getting to the quarterback. Once you get there, you also have to finish the play. And guys will totally psych themselves out in those situations. And I thought Keion White did a really good job in that regard yesterday. I thought he was huge, especially because not the best game from Joshua Uche. The thing that stood out to me, he had that one sequence in the second quarter where back-to-back third downs. He has one where he blows contain, and then another one where he jumps off sides, and it was still 3rd and 1, but the Bengals pick it up on the ground. Like, Keion White, part of what was impressive about Keion White, he played well against the run, too. He was a 3-down player. He gave you a little bit of everything. He flashed more so against the pass, but you liked what you saw from him well-rounded. Josh Uche, we all know who Joshua Uche is. He's here to 3rd down, pin your ears back, go get the quarterback. That's his job, and he needs to make his money on 3rd downs. 3rd downs can't be a weak spot for him. And he had some moments. There was one play he had where he was able to get all the way around the horn and kind of push Burrow up in the pocket into Keion White for one of Keion White's sacks. So it's not like a wholly bad game, but for a guy that, again, is going to make his money on 3rd downs, back-to-back misses on 3rd down stand out.
Yeah, no, that was the part where, you know, Josh Uche sort of got the thumbs down for the game, where like, I think this is sort of the same story with him. It's that, you know, maybe he can generate some pressure off the edge, but, you know, a smart offense, like this is looking way down the schedule, but this is on top of my mind because they played last night. Sean McVay and the Rams look at the film and look at Josh Uche. They see him on the field, they'll have a play right. Let's run at that guy. Let's run it out to the right tackle and see what happens, because they know that Josh Uche is going to try to over pursue inside and just get caught. And yeah, I think he has to play with better discipline, and I think he has to earn more trust from the coaches to stay out there on 3rd downs. And like, I would have liked to see a guy like Anthony Jennings out there a little more. You know, I wrote my column about him going into the game. I was wondering if he was going to be more of an every down threat. And, you know, I guess maybe he still has work to do as a pass rusher. He can still set the edge against the run as well as any outside linebacker in the league for my money. But yeah, like I wonder if they're gonna stick to the plan with Uche playing a lot of those 3rd downs after that game. I think he's gonna look at that film and realize that he probably does have to have a little more discipline and be ready to tackle someone off the edge in situations like that, because, you know, is that when the Bengals scored the touchdown? Was that their touchdown drive? Or that was the drive that led to that was almost a touchdown, but they turned it over at the goal line. So he very nearly, like, I would have said Josh Uche cost them the touchdown on that drive if it went down that way. So yeah, no, not a great game for him. And like, he's gonna have to make more of an impact as an actual pass rusher and definitely not blow contain on certain plays like that, especially in, like you said, in those key third down situations.
Yeah, you mentioned the play at the goal line too. Just great job by all the Patriots players yesterday, punching at the ball. Forced 2 fumbles, recovered 1. Probably should have had another right on that Burrow play where he didn't really give himself up. And even Jerod Mayo said this morning he was still kind of looking for some clarification on that rule. But like seeing,
I feel like if that was a playoff game, if that was like a big playoff game, they'd be looking at changing the rules to accommodate that one. You know,
absolutely. But good job there. Kyle Duggar punched the ball. I don't know what Tanner Hudson was thinking on that play. Like, did he think he was going to go Michael Jordan in Space Jam and his arm was just going to grow? Like, dude, you're at the 4. What are you reaching out for?
Yeah, no. It looked like he was trying to dunk it. He was about to go up for the slam dunk.
But this is the advantage the Patriots had for years that they hadn't had the last 2 years, which is just, they would make situational mistakes. In something Bill Belichick always preached was, don't reach the ball out at the goal line. Like, if you're at the 1, you'll get in, live to see another play. And you saw that work in the Patriots' advantage there. One other thing on the defense I wanted to mention, Christian Gonzalez, awesome in this game. Awesome against Ja'Marr Chase. And for all of the talk about him having a rough camp, maybe he's just a gamer. Like, it certainly felt like that. Ja'Marr Chase had 3 catches for 14 yards against Gonzalez. He finished with 6 for 62 total, but some of that was they went into zone and Gonzalez wasn't the primary defender, which I think they did a little too much. I get you got to change it up, but late in the game, it's like this, Gonzalez is feeling it, like put him on Chase. But he picked up kind of where he left off last year with these big performances against these star receivers.
Yeah, no, and I think that, like I wrote about it earlier this morning on 98.5thesportshub.com. It's that I think people just focus too much on the personality side of it, like how his whole demeanor and the way he carries himself and all that. Like, just because he's not one of these loud, in your face, intense, rah type of cornerbacks doesn't mean he's not good. It doesn't mean he can't be really good. I think he's a guy who has a quiet confidence to him. And I think I base it all on how they perform on the field, because look, he plays well. What do they say? Oh, he's got ice water in his veins. Nobody can rattle this kid. If he doesn't play well, oh, does he even care about football? He has no compete. And then you flip it around. If he's a crazy guy, if he's a wild, crazy horse type of player out there, and he plays well, oh, this is a fiery guy. This is exactly the kind of energy you want. He's an intense guy. If he doesn't play well, oh, he's out of control. He doesn't know how to handle his emotions. Like, it's all based on how you play on the field. It's all based on wins and losses and how you perform in those specific situations. It's not how you are as a person, how you talk, anything like that. I think that's where people sort of lose sight of what Christian Gonzalez can be, which I think he can be an elite corner in this league, which we saw against Ja'Marr Chase yesterday, and we saw earlier in the season, in his rookie season. So I think the question with him is just stay healthy and be consistent, because if he can do what he did yesterday, like, they're going to have one of the best corners in the league, the way he's playing, with the size, the speed, the fluidity, the way he can just stick to you and run your route. So I thought he had an excellent game. I think he has a chance to have an elite season. So hopefully he just stays consistent, because they're going to need him in some of these matchups coming up.
I mean, the way he played yesterday, and it is just one game. He is just essentially 5 games into his NFL career, but he was more the number 1 corner. He was the kind of guy you look at and say, you can leave him on an island with the number 1 receiver, and we're going to go over here and play the game 10 on 10. And when this Patriots defense is at its best, and it looks like they're still running more or less the Belichick defense. So when I say this defense, I mean, like, when this system's at its best, it's when they're playing 10 on 10 with the top receiver race. So Gonzalez, we'll see, but early indication he may be able to give them some of that. Anything else on the defense? And then I got one last point.
I thought Jonathan Jones made the best play of the game.
Thank you.
That fourth down stop, and like, just coming out of the game, like, my overarching take on the defense is like, yes, it's more or less a similar system, still playing a lot of nickel and things like that. But I thought it struck me, Barth, that this is a largely the same defense, almost all the same players, and yet they somehow looked faster and more physical than ever, at least in recent years. So I wonder if like, I hate to turn this into a knock on Bill Belichick. The guy's not here anymore. He won 6 Super Bowls and all that, I just wonder if Jerod Mayo is getting through to these guys to a level that Bill Belichick couldn't just in the last few years there. Bill Belichick, obviously still as good as anyone at coming up with a defensive game plan. But I think the way that Mayo is approaching it, where he says he's empowering guys, he's giving them a chance to own their role, where they can sort of feel like they are in complete control of what happens and how they execute and perform on the field, rather than maybe feeling like they're more of just a vessel for Bill Belichick's game plan. I think that approach tends to work with these guys better. And I think you saw that yesterday. It's a largely the same system, a lot of the same players, and yet they looked fast and physical, loud, big hits. And I think none of that showed up better than that one play with Jonathan Jones showing the speed, the awareness, the physicality, just to hammer that guy behind the line to gain and get a turnover on downs there. I thought that was huge. The Bengals were, moving down the field and sort of snuffed that out. And so I thought that was sort of exemplary of everything we saw in the defense and how the defense might be a little different now than it was the last few years.
And I mean, 5'9", 183 versus 6'3", 212. Like you said, to recognize that play from the safety spot as soon as he did come up, a ton of momentum, and it wasn't even close. Like I don't even think they measured, right? That was just, you're full yard short on this fourth down. So really dominant effort there.
It was no game.
Right.
I think.
Right. Really, really good play there. All right. Well, last thing I want to bring up, special teams.
Yeah.
Masterclass.
Yeah.
Special teams masterclass from the Patriots. Great start to the Jeremy Springer era. Again, they had that one mistake on the first kickoff, but after that, Joey Sly hit all his field goals, got every kickoff out of bounds. Bryce Behringer, 5 punts, 3 I-20s, no touchback. The coverage team was excellent. On top of the forced fumble, Brendan Schooler was down the field. He had 3 tackles there. They kind of limited what the Bengals could do as well. You saw the Bengals special teams look lost at times. This is, again, if this team's going to win, it's going to have to be on the margins. They're going to have to do the little things better than everybody else. And this was an example of that. They were far and away the better special teams unit on the field, and it showed up in the result. Like, I don't know that they win that game without dominating special teams the way they did.
Barth, another check mark for the Sports Hub Patriots podcast. Validation. We said for weeks they're going to be better on special teams. I think everyone saw it in the preseason. Like, okay, they might have something going on special teams here. And so new special teams coordinator, Jeremy Springer, feels like they have someone there. They feels like they found a good coach there. Everyone was mostly crisp in their execution. There was the one little, the early jump by Del Pettis on the first play of the game. I didn't go back and check the snaps. I don't know if they kept him in there, if he kept playing, if they replaced him on those downs.
I have it right here. He played 12 special team snaps.
Okay. So, but just the one little mistake. I feel like other than that, their execution was crisp. They obviously forced the turnover. Joey Sly, perfect on his field goal tries. That's something we weren't really used to over the last year or so. So that was good to see. Bryce Behringer.
You mean you didn't miss gritting your teeth before a 32-yard field goal?
I know, seriously. Yeah, we don't know where the hell this thing's going to go. Put your helmet on. Bryce Behringer had a great game. I think he's ready to have a big year. He had a good camp and good preseason and all that. And so, special teams is going to be good again. It's not going to be a liability after, the blocked punts and the missed assignments and all the mistakes and miscues and the execution problems that we saw over really the last 2-3 years. I really thought that deteriorated in the last few years under Bill Belichick and Cam McCord. I almost lost his name there, the old special teams coordinator. So I think it's a new era under Jeremy Springer, and it feels like they're going to be sharp on special teams. And look, they're not going to win a ton of games on special teams. But I think it's going to be good to have them in there just being clean and limiting and not having any big mistakes like we used to see.
Definitely a boost for sure. And something they'll need to keep going next week. I think Seattle had a blocked punt, I believe, against Denver in that game. So they'll need to stay on it on special teams as they take on the Seahawks next week. We will, though, preview that game later this week. In the meantime, you can find more of our coverage on 98.5thesportshub.com. Matt wrote about Christian Gonzalez's performance, Jerod Mayo's reaction to the game. I think you have one other thing you're working on, right? Or am I throwing you under the bus here?
Not throwing me. I'm going to have final thoughts on the game, just emptying the notebook and just little observations from the game as we move forward and turn the page to week 2.
So if that's not up by the time you listen to this, that'll be up soon. Again, 985thesportshub.com. I have my 8 takeaways. I have some thoughts on the offensive line, and I'm going to kind of put together some thoughts on the offensive approach as well, probably by tomorrow, so you can check that out, again, on 985thesportshub.com. For more of these podcasts and any Patriots audio from the station, subscribe to the Sports Hub Patriots audio feed, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Sports Hub YouTube channel as well. All right, week 1 in the books. For Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.